Hi, Andy.
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yep. Can you hear us
I can. Yeah,
or
great
hear
to see
me?
everybody.
Yeah, good to see you.
Hi, Andy.
Hi there. How are you?
Good so far.
Good. It's unbelievably cold here.
Where
I think
are you?
Boston.
Where are you,
Uh, I'm
Andy?
I'm in Waltham, just
Oh,
outside of Boston.
okay.
So it got to be a high of 20 today, but it started out at about 4.
You're in my neck of the woods. I grew up in Framingham.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What do you call yourselves when you're from Massachusetts?
Well, what other people call us or what? we
Yes,
call
or
ourselves?
either, both. Massachusettsers.
Yeah, no, yeah. Massachusettsites.
I don't know.
I don't
What are they?
know what, I don't know. I
They
don't
don't
know
have a
what college
common
are.
nickname, I don't
Yeah,
think.
that's not the, yeah.
It's like Buckeyes or Hoosiers or.
Celtics.
Yeah, I think we don't need states, so we don't need a nickname.
We don't need to call us by our full name. Yeah. Little
A
attitude.
Pilgrim.
Yeah.
The Minutemen is sort of,
A symbol kind of.
See.
Hmm.
Is it 3?
15 seconds according to the
What are you looking
master
at?
clock.
Oh. I can't hear you, Lisa.
Oh, I was gonna say, it's so nice, there's everybody's relaxed.
Yes, and only Andy is free. Okay, are we ready to go? You ready, Lisa? Okay. Right, well, welcome everyone to the January 21st, 2025 meeting of the Sonoma County Library Finance Committee And want to welcome, first of all, our new member, Tina Poles, who is the commissioner from Cotati. Would you like to say anything about your interest in joining the committee, Tina?
Make sure you use it.
Press the little thing.
I think it's really important to do a good job as a commissioner to understand the finances. I just think otherwise, I think it's harder to do a good job and an informed job. So for me, after, I've only been a commissioner for a couple of months, and after talking to lots of people and being in a few commission meetings, it was clear to me like this is an important place to spend your time.
Something you want to learn more about?
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
And you have some experience, I remember.
Yeah, I live in a co-housing community in Cotati, and I'm on their finance committee there. So, I run part of a team that runs their finances as well. So, yeah.
Great. Well, we welcome you. It's great to have fresh eyes, on our reports, and it's always good when you ask questions, and it helps us, think about the answers and, consider things more. So thank you and welcome, board, and glad you're with us. So I'm calling us to order. I kind of did that already, but let me go through the role of commissioners. So Commissioner Doyle, Commissioner Poles,
Here,
Commissioner Cahill,
Here,
Commissioner Andy, name just went out of my head. Commissioner Elkind.
Here.
Thank you, and I'm here, so we're all here. Comes time for an announcement. I had one announcement. The last couple of meetings, I felt things were kind of just mildly out of control. And I would like to go back to a slightly more formal structure like we had under our prior chair, who is well known for his statement. Let me stop you right there. So that's what I think of when I think of Andy. I like a free-flowing discussion, lots of ideas. I want to have everybody have a chance to talk and whatever, but I think we're kind of talking over each other last couple of times. So I do request that everybody put their hand up and get called on when they have something to say. So thank you for that. Any public appearances, Lisa?
There are no public members in attendance, and no members were submitting comments electronically.
Great, thank you very much. So we're gonna kick off our discussion on the budget, accounting and finance services workflow. So to our CFO, please.
We are on track and actually we're a little ahead. As you can see, for this meeting in January, we have the capital project update for Q2, which is on the agenda today. And, the mid-year review is, scheduled for February, but when that is for today. And I didn't want to delay it any further since I didn't have all of the numbers for December. That was the only thing that I wanted to.
Anyone have any questions or comments about the draft workflow for 2024-25 changes? Andy, say his hand up. Andy, Commissioner Elkine, please.
Yeah, thank you. I don't have a question about that, but Barbara, I can hear you really clearly. I heard all the members of the commission clearly when they were indicating their presence. Myrna, I'm not hearing you clearly, so I don't know if you were too far away from the microphone, but
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Yes, I can.
Excellent.
Thanks.
It's always good to have a microphone reminder, so thank you. Let us know if you can't hear Andy. Alrighty, so no questions about the workflow. We'll move on to item 4.2, the mid-year review as of December 31st, 2024. Back to our CFO.
Microphone, I will add my microphone. Okay. I am presenting the fiscal year 24-25 mid-year financial report ending December 31st, 2024. The Sonoma County completed its reimagining plan and it's been in place for several years now. And the strategic plan sets the priorities for the budget. And the Sonoma County aligns its budget with its vision and goals in the reimagining plan. There are 3 priority concepts that I'm presenting today for the purpose of building a pathway to a stronger community through the library. A mid-year review has 3 components: to visit the financial status of the Sonoma County Library and makes some recommendations for adjustments. The year-end projections of how the library will end the revenue and expenditures for the year ending June 30th, 2025. In terms of fiscal health check, we are on track with revenues and expenditures, cash balance, fund balance compared to the adopted budget. And looking ahead, how do we continue to stay on track and financial position for 2025? While, yes. The library has a healthy financial position. And because it continues to have prudent policies and prudent decisions and financial management actions taken over the last 6 months. And so even with those reductions that were adopted in December, we still are able to maintain our level of service and we have resilient operations. Our expenditures are within budget, and we will review our cash and fund balances as part of this report. The revenues show that the receipts for our first installment of property tax payments that come in December. And in sales tax, we have 4 months that are shown in your financial reports. So the remaining months provide we will see the April property tax receipt payment. And also under sales tax, we will see how we fared in terms of our holiday purchases. So those don't come in until, we won't see those until February. The library has a healthy financial position. While the rate of increase of revenues compared to prior years, year over year, the property tax revenues are increasing modestly year over year. And because of our financial discipline in terms of controls and policies that are in place, and we continue to update policies and procedures as a best practice. Also, we have a strong cash and fund balances, and we have a fully funded stabilization fund. For all of these reasons, we do continue to have a healthy financial position. In this chart, we can see the actual revenues year over year since the inception of Measure Y. Since the inception of Measure Y, sales tax has increased by approximately $3.5 million from the fiscal year 2018 to the estimated fiscal year 2025. Under property tax over the same period increased by $8.7 million. In this chart, I plotted the increase year over year. So how this shows that revenue increased from fiscal year 18 to fiscal year 19, fiscal year 19 to fiscal year 20, fiscal year 20 to fiscal year 21, and so on and so forth. So this is the change from year over year. And so I want to draw your attention that when we look at revenue over the last 3 years, so that includes years 23, 24, and 25, the rate of increase year over year has dropped in property tax and sales tax. So, but just a little bit of history as to why we see in particular, the red line is the sales tax, why you see these huge troughs and peaks. This reflects how sensitive sales tax is to our external economic factors. So if you can see, the first one is fiscal year 2019. There was about over $1 million from the increase from the prior year. However, in 2020, on the onset of the pandemic, the revenue dropped by $800,000, approximately, a dramatic drop. But because with government relief payments through the pandemic, consumers returned or even exceeded the pandemic purchasing levels, so sales tax peaked in year 2021. However, since then, because there's been high inflation and the federal interest rates have increased in order to control that inflation, as a result, consumers have also reduced their spending on taxable goods. So when consumers reduce spending, they pay less in sales tax, and we could see the impact to the library. As you can see, it drops down. When you see the dates are the zero y-axis, you see the dates, but below the dates means negative. And so we're still looking at a little bit of an uptick in 2025, but it basically, the message here is that our revenues are not increasing as how they have been in the past at the beginning of, or in the middle of this period. Okay. Andy, do you have a question?
I have a question and a comment. So first, in terms of my question, could you go back one slide, please, so we can see the numbers? Okay, great, thank you. And then on the chart that you were just showing, Myrna, I found the title of the chart really confusing because it's not 3 years and it doesn't seem to be the trend either. Could we call it something like, revenue change year over year or something like that? That would be a little clearer indication of what we're seeing.
Sure. That
Okay,
works.
thank
My
you.
point was that I wanted to draw your attention to the last 3 years,
Yeah,
but I can change the title of that for you.
thank you.
Okay.
Could you just talk a little bit, and again, newbie question, why, I understand why sales tax is so volatile. I don't really understand why property tax is doing what it's doing. Am I not understanding something about?
Sure, I can also give a little history on property tax. Property tax is pretty consistent in the Bay Area. Property values hold. And what the peak that you see there is when there was multiple homes were selling like pancakes really fast and very competitive, multiple offers on one home, and which, increased prices dramatically, and interest rates were really low. So there was a lot of activity going on with home sales, and property values were increasing dramatically, and that's why you see that peak there. But since then, when because of inflation and federal monetary policies, increases in interest rates, really reduced credit for individuals, and home prices are still relatively high. People are not, homes are on the market for a lot longer, and there is not that same level of competition. So prices have remained steady. And that's why you see this drop in year over year.
So just to clarify, that's more about that fluctuations about house sales versus standard property taxes that we all pay. So that's more steady, right? If you're not selling your home, just the property taxes you pay every year.
Correct. So
Versus the sale, those are really more influenced by the market of selling. Okay, that makes more sense to me. Thank you.
in this chart, which is also in your packet, I'd like to draw your attention to the revenue side. Under property, I'll just go line by line. Under property tax, I do expect that the library will meet its target. In December, the commission did approve a modest increase given the certified property values that were provided by the county. And so I do expect that we meet that target. In December, when the property taxes that were paid, we received over $15 million. And so we're at 56.4% of our target. So I do believe that we can meet our target for June 30th. Under sales tax, however, we have 4 months of sales tax, and for the benefit of Commissioner Polls is that sales tax has a 2-month lag. And so the So for example, the sales tax that we received in December represents October's sales tax receipts. So we have four months of sales tax receipts. And in my analysis of looking at sales tax over the last 3 years and compared to last year as well, very closely, we could still find ourselves in a shortfall of about $100,000 in sales tax. However, one of the areas that is performing well is the interest earned on our pooled cash balances. And there we have earned about $324,000 or 90% of our target 6 months into the fiscal year. So if all things remain the same, the interest for the next 6 months is projected to offset the projected sales tax loss. Under the expenditures, we are slightly below budget, and benefits and salaries are, I believe we will meet our target. I am proposing 2 budget adjustments that are rebudget. And a rebudget is when in the prior year, there were planned expenditures that were made, but those activities will either the good is not received until the next fiscal year that starts on July 1, or the project was not completed, will be completed also after July 1. So the funds that were budgeted last year are rolled over, what we call rebudget, into the new fiscal year to make that budget whole for that division. And these include, we have been doing on an annual basis, rebudgeting books from our collections that are put on order through June 30th, but they will not be received until several weeks into the new fiscal year, and that's about $100,000. The other is our Biblio Commons. That was, the contract was signed and the project was started last fiscal year, but it will not be completed, the installation, until this fiscal year. So we're rolling over, rebudgeting about $63,000 for a total of $167,382. Even with these projections, these budget adjustments, I do expect that the library will be within budget. What you will see here, though, you might notice also, is that our total revenue target that's estimated at $45.1 million, and our expenditures are expected to be $50 million. The reason why expenditures are greater than our revenues is that we tap into our fund balance to pay for our capital projects. So the difference there is the use of our fund balance. So with that, I would like to just recap that we are on track to meeting our revenue targets overall, as well as our expenditures, and that we have healthy cash balances and fund balances that we can also are in your packets. Not a lot of change there, but property tax fund balance unassigned available for budgeting is approximately 12 million. And the fund balance available for budgeting unassigned is about $8 million. So with that, I would like to take any questions.
Maren, I had just a small question. You know, as we spend money, if we spend $5.7 million, then our interest is going down also, because we won't have that money to earn interest. Do you do projections on that?
I have not gone through those projections. But we can have a conversation, when we look further into the.
It's
fund
not
balance.
major. I mean, I don't know how to, off the top of it, what are we getting, around 5% now, kind of overall?
Yeah, approximately.
So in general, you have a nice healthy report and you're gonna bring this to the commission next
In
January, in February, okay? And commissioners, do you have any questions that you'd like to?
Looks good.
That's good. Or Tina, okay. Andy, any further questions? We can't hear you.
Yeah, I'm talking now. Can you hear me?
Gotcha.
Okay. Would this include questions on the written report that was included in the packet, or are we only taking questions on the PowerPoint?
Let's do both because it was kind of combined. Your question
Okay.
on the written report?
Yeah, so my question on the written report really minor, but it's on top of page 8. We're going through the different revenue sources. We do property tax, sales tax, intergovernmental revenues, donations, and then use of money revenue. I've never heard that term or seen that in any of the reports. Why isn't it just interest revenue?
Use of money revenue, if you also look at your schedules for property tax and sales tax, it is the title of that category of funds. Let's see, that would be I don't know, I don't have pages on me.
It's page 8 of your packet.
No, this.
Oh, that.
Well, that's only going to show up in one of the detail reports then, right? It's
Yes.
not in the summary report where it shows its interest income.
It's rolled up under other.
Under expenditures on the summary report.
Yeah, okay. So it shows up on page 19, for example, right?
Yes, and so it's under property tax and sales tax, you will see a character of 42,000, and it is intergovernment, no, I'm sorry, not 42. 44.
44th.
44,
Yeah, I
yes,
see
it
it.
says revenue use of money and property, so you see the interest on pooled cash and other interest and unrealized gains and losses.
But in practical terms, it's virtually all interest income, right?
Correct.
Okay, all right. Yeah, that was my only comment on that report.
Okay. All right, thank you, Andy. I actually had, on page 11, I did have something marked here.
Are we going there, Barbara? Because I had some stuff also there.
Okay, well, I'll just mention this one thing. There's something missing under fiscal impact. The bottom paragraph down there, it's a number that didn't get completed.
Yeah, there's a couple of things on this page actually. So
Oh,
the
yeah, I
end of
see
that, so the end of that first sentence under fiscal impact, where it says by $220, there's clearly something missing.
That number should equal the number in the first paragraph. It says, the last sentence in the first paragraph says, the total requested budget to be
215,000.
reauthorized, 215,929.
Okay.
So that's the same number? That's the same number we should put
Yes.
down there at the bottom? Okay.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead, Andy.
So my request would be to correct these before it goes to the full commission. Under the at the top of that page, the paragraph that is headed collections. The second or the third sentence says, as of June 30th, 2023,
Oh,
there
yeah.
were books on order. That should be June 30th, 2024.
Yes.
And then under information technology, the last two sentences, are actually one sentence, or should be one sentence. It is requested to rebudget $63,629. We shouldn't have a
Yes.
period there, right? From the
Okay.
prior year, fiscal year
Yes.
24-25, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Good catches, good editing, Andy.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Questions? Commissioner Doyle?
Yes, I should know this. I think it's terrific that we got Biblio Commons. Do we pay them then an additional fee annually?
Yeah.
It's not the same though. Yeah.
So there was an implementation fee and then there is an ongoing charge that we pay every year, but it will be lower because we won't be paying the implementation fee.
And it's possible that some of the commissioners have forgotten that you can purchase books, but you don't get them until, so you might, I'm glad you reminded us, and you might want to remember to remind the commission of that as well.
Good point. Any other comments? Before we move on to the next topic? No? Seeing none? Let's go through the reports just briefly as needed. I had a couple of questions about the reports themselves. The page isn't numbered, but this is the property tax, sales tax funds summary. And under other contract services, we can see that we're over where we would expect to be, that 76.5% when we're at 50% of the year. So that report, it shows farther on here under other contract services. So, found it once, there it is. Okay, again, no, it's not numbered, but does everybody have this report called other contract services? Oh, it does have a number. I just can't see it. Number 6 of the reports anyway. Okay.
So what is happening here, what has been reported in prior monthly reports is that there are a number of subscriptions that are recorded in this account item that are paid for the entire year. So over the last few months, it has been higher than our, at the point in time where we are in the fiscal year. I think going forward from January on, and January and February, if this number is still high, that we will need to drill down to look at what's taking
Okay.
place there.
The one on here that I really did not know what it was unless I've forgotten, Michael Dan Powell, 15,720. Presentation MADF, July through September.
He was our librarian who worked at the jail. And that's a contract that we have with the sheriff's department.
So he's not our librarian?
Oh, and maybe Michael Dan Powell is our ESL instructor.
That's the next one.
Oh, no, he's not our librarian. No, he works, so we contract with the sheriff's department. They pay him, but we contract with them. I can tell you that he has resigned. So, and we are currently deciding whether or not we want to continue our contract with the sheriff for a variety of reasons that I won't go into.
So this is presumably the only charge we're going to see, or something
Probably
major
this
will end?
fiscal year, yeah.
Okay, so that was $15,000. So he was a translator, did you say?
No, he's a librarian who works in the adult jail, providing library
Okay,
services.
now I'm thinking of the one for juvenile, of the younger one, and he's our staff person, isn't he?
Correct, he works for us.
Okay,
Barbara,
yes, David.
what does MADF stand for?
Is that under Michael?
Presentation of MADF, July to September.
It's, the last two is,
Adult detention facility. I don't know what the M
Yeah.
stands for, but
I think, Michael, are you trying to say something?
M, I don't know what the M stands for, but ADF is adult detention, adult facility, yeah.
Okay. So anyway, this is a in transition topic. I mean, he's okay. Did anyone else have any questions on other contract services? I know we've talked about subscriptions a number of times, but I agree with you. If this keeps going like this, we'll need to look a little further. Let's see, that was one of my questions, on page 2, the cash balance summary. Just in terms of understanding this graph down here at the bottom, net activity, donations, interest, and expenses. So in October, all these postings out was is that a quarterly interest payment? I'm on the bottom of page
Yes,
2.
these are interests that are posted for that first quarter.
So we just post interest quarterly to each of these accounts. None of them had any. Oh, I guess the Kunde Fund had something. What is that? How do you
It's
do it?
one of it's a deposit, their annual disbursement to the
Okay.
library.
Okay. Great. And it's, where was it? Gotta go.
Chair Mackenzie,
Yes,
Dave Tasheva just texted me and said that MADF stands for Main Adult Detention Facility.
aha, very good. Thank you, David. All righty. Any other questions, any other reports before we move on? Okay. That to item number 4.3, quarter 2, capital projects update and request for release of funds. To our CFO.
Yeah.
Out of paper. Okay. You got it, Lisa? Okay, so also for the benefit of our new commissioner, just to give you a little bit of history on our capital budgeting. We are now, I think, in our second year of a new capital budgeting procedure. The procedure is, to better reflect the activity that's taking place with our capital projects. And to release only the funds that we are certain will be expended. In the past, the library would appropriate 100% of what the cost of the project would be. And because of delays with our joint powers authorities or some other reason, if there were delays, the budget looked like we weren't doing any work, which is true. But those funds, in order to put in place more control around our budget, we are releasing funds in 3 steps. On July 1, 1/3 of the capital budget is released. There's a report on the end of the first quarter, and the library may request additional release of funds depending on how the project is advancing. And on every quarter, we present a report to the Finance Committee and the Commission on our expenditures and the progress of our projects. So this is quarter 2. And so I've met with our facilities manager, Dave Tacheva, as well as our IT manager, Mike Daw, to present this report. Under IT, there are no additional requests, and it's a brief summary at the end of the report, but the main request is under the facilities division. And under the facilities division, we're requesting the commission to release $552,012, which is all the detail is reflected in attachment A. So if we look at attachment A, we are the $552,000 is represented in the numbers above. We're requesting to release $185,980 for the Cloverdale patio project. Um, There will be an item at the February meeting for the contract work to break ground on that project. So we will need the funding in order to have it available and pay our bills. So we're requesting 100% of that, of the original budget of $350,000 that you can see under column B. The next request is $116,718 for our history and genealogy library project, so that we can make the payments on the equipment and materials that we need for that project. Certainly, Dave, did you want to add anything to these projects?
Nothing to add so far.
Okay, I'll stop there if there are any questions on these two. Okay. We also wanted to add additional information. Oh, wait a second. I'm sorry, I missed one. I'm also asking to release for the Guerneville branch, $143,314. That represents the county received Building Forward grant money to make improvements to the Guerneville branch. And the library agreed, there is a match required, and the library agreed to contribute 50% of that required match, which is $143,314. The county has asked us to release those funds since they're starting work. So this represents that request.
Can I ask you about that, Meredith? Did we talk about this? Has this come before us? I mean, it wasn't that long ago that we did a update of Guerneville Library and had big opening and all that stuff. I'm not aware of this 50% match unless I do know and I've forgotten about it, but.
Yes, just as a reminder, when it was last fiscal year in January that that all the JPA partners that received a library building forward grant, the library agreed to match 50% of the matching requirement. And at that time, the staff went to the commission and the commission approved setting aside these funds.
Okay.
Erica, would you like to add any?
Sure, yeah, so we had to provide a letter to each of our partners so that they could include that in their grant documentation for the state library. So that was done in January 2024 by resolution. And I think most of the projects, because, you know, they weren't done last year, they're either going to be done this year or they will be done this year and next fiscal year. So that's why you see some of them are only releasing, 49% or because some of the work is going to be done next fiscal year.
So the JPA partners that got the matching grants were Guerneville, Rohnert Park, and
HG.
H&J. Okay, so the JPA partners, then it was just Guerneville and Rohnert Park, and then Sebastopol got one, I think, before. Maybe that was a state infrastructure or library infrastructure thing. Okay, so it's a 50-50 match with the county for Guerneville. The Rohnert Park one, I didn't think it was 50-50 match, but.
It is a 50-50 match, but what we have budgeted was 350,000, but the total match request was about 457,000. So there's additional funds that we will need to budget, but I know the city is not planning on starting this project until next fiscal year.
And my lingering question is, I know Healdsburg tried to get a grant and didn't get a grant. So the project would be then fully funded by the library and without matching funds? I mean, I know they're all kind of different projects,
So
but,
the infrastructure grants were for infrastructure. So basically, HVAC, lighting control, solar, all of that kind of very expensive capital projects. What we are paying for at Healdsburg is primarily a renovation. So there is no grant funding because what we're doing there does not qualify under their grant requirements, although the city is doing some exterior ADA, and that's, I want to say they put in about 200,000 for that.
The city approved up to 240,000, but allowed us to bill up to 140,000 right now.
Okay, so, but that exterior ADA would have qualified under the grant if they had gotten it, but they did not get it.
so they're gonna pay it though.
They're gonna pay it, though,
Okay.
correct?
So is HVAC, is that always apples and apples? Like if we pay for some HVAC improvement, are we paying for everybody's? Are they different kinds of things? Because the HVAC is part of the Roanoke Park one that the
Yes.
city is responsible for, as opposed to the HVAC in Healdsburg, which Healdsburg is not paying for.
I'm not sure are they doing HVAC in Healdsburg? I don't think they
No,
are.
we did a upgrade a few months back in Healdsburg where it was a 50-50 split for the mini split system that heats and cools the form room.
Okay, all righty. Thank you for that. All right.
Yep.
Okay. Where were we? Did I get you off track, Nina? Are you?
We did have other qualifying things in Healdsburg. I'd just like to say, the ADA restrooms, the gender neutral restrooms totally would qualify for the grant. Part of the problem with Healdsburg is they didn't pass the means test, meaning that the grant was targeting, areas that are underserved.
So
That's
if they
all-
didn't meet that qualification, then is the city responsible because they didn't get the grant that the city's
Not
gonna pay it?
necessarily because we were doing the restrooms regardless of them getting the grant or not, but that certainly did impact our gap.
Okay. Make sure I totally understand all that.
So generally, we pay for interior ADA and the cities pay for exterior ADA, as is in our lease. The things that goes on in the interiors, the library pays for. Exterior improvements typically the city would pay for.
Yes, David.
What is the meaning of the word underserved in this context?
Well, the grant, it has to do with quality of life, quality of living, socioeconomic factors. I don't know what the state, how they made those determinations, what basis they used, but it was they looked at the kind of socioeconomic factors and the places that had greater need got the funding.
And those places were include Healdsburg?
Healdsburg did not get
No.
grant
Oh,
funding.
okay,
They didn't get it.
All
They don't
right.
have the demographics.
okay.
Okay, sorry. Anyway, back to our CFO.
So the other is, there, as you may recall, in prior reports, we wanted to continue to update you on projected funding gaps with the Petaluma project. With the Petaluma project, we have been able to close the gap significantly. And due to ongoing meetings with the city, who has agreed to reimburse the library for the fire suppression system. And this is work that the library has been conducting under the contract. And also, and there's also under the grant, in having these conversations with the city, the state is allowing flexibility as to compared to the original grant budget that was submitted. So therefore, that that is allowing the library to benefit somewhat in order to reduce that gap that we had originally reported. In addition, Dave conducted received bids for the shelving and furnishings that came under budget. And so combined, all these factors have been able to close the deficit under Petaluma.
Can you tell us roughly what that would be?
Dave, could you?
Yeah, the gap that we're closing in Petaluma is about $741,000.
So the extra money, the extra request was going to be about, was it 1.8 million, or I can't remember now, I didn't bring my.
Something like that. And we're pretty positive that we've closed this entirely with what the state's allowing us to do. Healdsburg is not that case. We've done everything and bids have come in and we're still under budget there. Or over budget there, I'm sorry. Mainly due to the construction came in about 800,000 higher than we anticipated.
So on Petaluma then, will we have some, details
Oh, yeah.
spelled out, by the next
Yeah,
meeting? Okay.
By the next finance committee meeting, yeah, we have an updated grant budget to show people.
Okay, that would be good. It
Yep.
would be helpful. All right.
So just to clarify, Dave, the results for the Healdsburg furnishings, do we have those?
Yes, those all came in right at projected cost. So we weren't able to reduce that gap with those. There was slight savings. We did a pretty good job of budgeting that part. It was really the construction that threw us all off.
And the last report I think we had was it was close to $1 million that way it was
Right.
underfunded. Are you
Right.
saying now it's about 800,000 underfunded?
It's about 855. And that's not including if we can get another 140 from the city. So I didn't even include that as part of the equation because until we
So
have it,
it's-
we don't.
Okay, so it's 700 to 855,000.
Yes.
That additional request. Okay. So to Commissioner Pulse, what we're trying to establish is that we do have these unassigned fund balances, but there's still projects that even though we haven't funded them, they're in the pipeline to be funded. And so these numbers have grown in terms of the commitment of the projects in the pipeline, because they were projects that were bid out a long time ago and then they weren't done and now everything cost a whole bunch more. So the Petaluma number is a little bit in flux, but it's better than it was a couple of months ago. Healdsburg is a little better, it sounds like, than the last time we looked. So we'll have those numbers all laid out for us in next finance committee meeting. David and Myrna. Okay, great. Thank you. Go on to you. Back to you, Myrna.
So I believe I covered the bullet points here for this report on Q2. So in summary, the library will be asking the commission for $552,012 to release funds for Cloverdale, the history and genealogy, and the Guerneville branches.
Any commissioners have any questions about these projects and the requests for funds? Okay. You, Myrna, are you done with that
Yes.
topic? Yeah, okay, great, thank you.
What is next?
Has his hand raised.
Okay, Commissioner Elkine, you have the floor.
Thanks. I just had a question about the last line, the facilities, multiple projects and furniture. Could you say something about what's going into that?
Yeah, that's our furniture replacement. We replace office chairs. If we have a new staff, like we have some staff at the annex or history and genealogy that don't have height adjustable desks and stuff like that. So as long as we can bundle those purchases together, we can use capital to do that. And so that's
Okay.
what that budget line's for. I was raising my hand because I thought the whole committee might be interested that the Cloverdale bids were opened on Wednesday and they came in under budget. So we've made the right adjustments in our projects and that one's looking just right.
That's great. Thanks, Dave.
Always happy to hear about under budget. So thank you. All right, we're gonna move on to item 4.4. And the last couple of meetings we've had, we've talked about the unassigned fund balance and how to create, number one, a policy for any future unassigned balances that we might collect. And as we've seen in earlier reports here, even though, and of course, we're all thrilled that Measure W passed, even though we have stable funding, that's no guarantee that it's going to be increasing funding. It's just, there's an uncertainty about it all. So we want to have a policy in case we do have unassigned fund balances at the end of our budget years. But we also are trying to do some planning for the amount that we do currently have. And is fortunately giving us some good interest payments into the fund. So anyway, we've titled this item 4.4 unassigned fund balance planning. And we're going to take topics one by one, maybe more than one topic at a meeting. But we wanted to start off today with reviewing the OPEB policy. Currently, we put in, there's a pay-as-you-go amount that we pay, and there's also $750,000 taken out of our general fund every year, out of our operating expenses to help pay down this amount that the long-term liability in the OPEB fund. I wanted to, before we start, just let you know that, of course, I'm a complete pack rat, and this is the original OPEB folder from the original OPEB committee. It has all the names and all the minutes and everything in here. And who was on it and what we were trying to accomplish and so forth. I thought that you'd be interested to know that the reports came from a person named Nick Franchini at northbaypensions.com, and working from his reports. And then we developed a policy. And when I say we, there was Darren Jenkins, who was the city manager of Roanoke Park at the time, one of the members of the Pizzenti and Brinker, and then we had a person named Larry Group, I believe, who was an attorney and a CPA, and Helena Whistler and I. And so they very much wanted to tell the story that we were being fiscally responsible, that we were going to do everything we could to have the system be very healthy during the 10 years that we knew for sure we were going to be getting the sales tax. That was kind of the focus of it. And when Mr. Franchini did his report, there was a census of library employees as of August 1st, 2017, was 131 employees and 85 people receiving retirement benefits. So of course, we've grown enormously since that point in time. So anyway, we can, once we have this kind of a further discussion, we might want to go back to, some of these ways that this policy was prepared and so forth. But we have, I don't have it with me, but I know Meredith prepared it for us. We're going to make a deposit of $3 million, but we not at all at one point in time. And we've verified that was true. You prepared a report for us, I don't know, 6 months ago, and you're going to carry it forward in all of our budget documents to show that we actually did do that 3 million at 750,000 at a time, which became very kind of confusing because we were also doing 750,000 per year out of the operating expenses. But I feel confident about that. I know you did that for us and we have that. So anyway, that's by way of an introduction and reporting on my folder here, if anybody ever wants to see anything about it. But we need to talk about the fact that we have 2 more years where we're still under Measure Y, we're still under this policy, and whether during that time we might want to create another committee, we need to look at the policy again. How do we move forward on this this particular topic? So Meredith, did you want to talk about? You've got it report? Well, you've got the policy in the packet for us.
Yes, the policy that is in place today is in your packet. It does, I don't I did do an accounting of what had been contributed to the OPEB trust, as well as the, it also included our year over year normal costs in that report. And it did include the $3 million plus the 750. There was an additional 600,000 plus dollars that was contributed, I think, 2 years ago now. So I could bring that report back and show and update it to where we are today. There was an actuarial report also that was presented to this committee, I would say, I don't know, maybe 7 months ago. It was last fiscal year. And it showed that the library was doing really well in terms of setting aside funds in a trust to contribute toward our OPEB liability. And that at this time, given the policy that we had in place, there was no need to make any changes. But there, 10 years of this, but I think that was assumed that this would be ongoing even past the 10 years. So, but this policy would end in fiscal year 2028. And so that'll be in, we're in 25, so in about 3 fiscal years. So I would say you'd still have the payment for today, this year. So you'd have 4 more payments of 750,000 under the current policy. So I would like to get direction from the committee in terms of what are the next steps in terms of this policy that you would like in order to make any further decisions, is my understanding, whether you want to extend the policy and or also change the amount that you're contributing every year.
Well,
He's got his hand.
let me just, what did you mean by 4 more? It's 2 more years for the 10 years, or did we start it 2 years late?
Well, the way I read it is that under the regulations, it says number 2, it says deposit 750,000
Yeah.
annually
Okay.
into OPEB trust for 10 years, beginning with fiscal year 18-19. So if I consider fiscal year 18-19 as year 1, year 10 would be fiscal year ending 2028. Is everyone in agreement?
So is that 27, 28?
27,
27,
28.
28.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay.
So we still need to pay this current year. And then you'd still have, current year is 25, 26, 27, 28. So 4 more payments.
Well, we have the latest actuarial report, you said. We have that, and that's kind of where we started from. What we had when we had this committee was some outside eyes. Some people who had, more experience than we had internally, to help us develop this policy. And I think that's one question I have. I don't know. I mean, what do you think?
And Andy has his hand raised.
Oh, Andy, okay. Well, let me finish my question of Myrna, and then I'll go to you, Andy. Did you have any thoughts about the need for some outside expertise?
Outside expertise. I think I would say if we were to get outside expertise, it would be a bigger picture, and that would combine a review of our pension liability, so that you can the commission can make a decision on what these unfunded liabilities are in terms of our retirees.
That's a good idea. Have a big picture of both. Andy, did you have a comment, question?
Yeah, I went back to the audit, which had I thought, a pretty decent summary of where we are with OPEB at the moment. I know that you know, Barbara, that when we started this policy, we were virtually not funded at all. We were starting from zero, and we have made up a lot of ground. As I looked over the figures in the audit, it looked as though as of and I could share my screen if you want, or I can just call out a couple of numbers here, whichever you prefer. But as of June 30th, 2023, we had a net liability of about 8.6 million, which represented about 51% of the total liability. So it meant that we had funds available to cover about 49% of our liability. Not great, but obviously a big improvement over zero. As of a year later, and as of June 30th, 2024, we had reduced the net liability to 8.36 million, but out of a larger total liability. And that meant that we were now only unfunded 46%. So we're moving in the right direction. The audit also calls out all of the assumptions that go into any future calculation like this, and that includes the future rate of return. It includes the estimated inflation rate for healthcare expenses. There's lots of variables.
No.
My feeling is that from a policy perspective, we should recognize that while our goal is to be 100% funded, there's always going to be some fluctuations. And just as a good year of market returns can increase the amount of revenue we have, a poor year of returns can decrease it. So my thought would be that our policy should basically say that we're going to continue to make these additional payments until we're 100% funded. And at that point, recognizing that there are going to be fluctuations, say that as long as we're within, say, 90% of full funding, that we just figure that we're going to work it out. But that if it ever falls below 90%, that we go back to making additional payments, something along those lines. That's going to take us a number of years to achieve, but I think we should have a long-term plan to get there. That's my opinion, and I'll stop.
Well, I agree with you, Andy, and you said it well, and you wrapped it up very well. But that's the point about setting a goal and getting to the goal, and how, having that revised policy in place, and whether we have the expertise in-house to get us to that place. We might, but I don't know. I like the idea of that Myrna brought up about having, looking at both our unfunded liabilities and getting, we have the actuarial reports, but who's going to help guide us to, a good decision. So, yes, David.
Couple of comments. I agree completely with Andy. We should remember that in comparison with many other units of government, we are startlingly in good shape with regard to our net liability on this stuff. So what I would like to see is, first, that we continue the present policy. Second, that I don't think we need to bring in other players at the moment, because we're basically going on a steady as you go policy. And third, I see nothing wrong with throwing in a paragraph here about how we want to keep this going until we're 90% free of liability. So I think it's fairly straightforward. Thanks.
Well, we're never gonna be free of liability, but I mean, have a goal of being 90% funded or something like that. Tina?
I have a question. What is the legal minimum of funding? Like something like an HOA has to be funded on their reserves to 30%. Doesn't mean that's, you shouldn't do more. Is there a fine, like it can't go lower than this?
I've never heard about it. I don't know.
The minimum is the pay-as-you-go. So the pay-as-you-go is not sufficient to keep up with the liability, but the minimum is the pay-as-you-go.
I wasn't suggesting we do that, but I just wanted to know where the
No.
bottom line was. Okay.
Good point. Deborah?
I agree with Andy and David, but I do think that since we are going to be in a pretty comfortable position, just continuing to pay, that we do take a look at the larger picture. I think we can continue to do this, but then also we can have a larger conversation about the financials as we go forward, since we've got the funding now. Whether it's now or whether we put it off because we've got a number of other things that we're working on. But I think that it's always a good thing to step back and take a look at the larger picture.
Well, what we're trying to do, it's like a big puzzle to me. I mean, what we're trying to do is whittle down what we have right now in unassigned fund balance. Figure out what the projects are that were already in the pipeline that we need to pay for, what we have left, which, maybe it's $10 million. And of that, where we put these funds. And so this calculation can include the policy as is. I think it'd be nice to, make sure that that's adequate. I mean, as Andy said, I mean, there are so many, the variables, I mean, we look like we're, well-funded and it can drop down, based on the economy and so forth. So I'm not sure in terms of the direction, what kind of direction to give you. I'd like to have a discussion with you maybe after about, consulting or, with
I
Erica.
could make a recommendation. We could, if we did hire an outside consultant, maybe we want them to give us some scenarios. Right now we're paying $750,000 in addition to the pay-as-you-go. What if we increase that? How much would that shorten our total funded liability? And obviously, if we're going to continue this policy, then at some point we will have to revise the policy to
Right.
reflect that the goal is 90% funding.
Right, and that, back to this old report, that's exactly what he did. He did scenario 1, 2, and 3. And, we took the more aggressive scenario to pay it down. At the time, I noticed that this trust was established in 2014, and it only had $1.4 million in it. So, huge progress has been made. But yeah, I'd just like to see, talk about that. So, maybe we can talk about this after the meeting about what kind of consultant might be, right, come back to the committee with a recommendation. David?
Just a minor matter. I hate to spend money for consultants on marginal issues. This sounds like one. We can just keep it as we are for a couple of years without what I consider throwing money down a rat hole on an outside consultant, which would probably tell us what Myrna knows already.
If we don't do that, then we plan based on this.
Yeah.
And, and we can do that for the next couple of years. Thoughts? So when we're doing our planning for unassigned fund balance, we can do it based on the current policy.
3 of us said that we thought that the current policy was pretty good.
Well,
Yeah.
Andy has his hand raised.
Andy?
Or
Yeah, I think the current policy is fine for now, but I also agree with Myrna that we should take a comprehensive look at this, because similarly, our goal should be to get within, I mean, I said 90%. There's nothing magic about that, but that seemed reasonable. I would take another number, but that we should have a goal for both the pension fund and OPEB that makes us all feel comfortable that we have been fiscally responsible in assuring that our valued staff will have the retirement and health benefits that they're expecting.
Well, is that a motion, Andy?
I don't know that we can make a motion. It's just a
Yeah, we
discussion item,
can't.
right?
Not on the agenda.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's
But,
just a discussion item.
It's just a discussion item, but I think that should be the direction that we're going in. And so, you know, we could have I think for a future meeting, Barbara, you could, you know, we could have an item where we try to agree on a goal of funding for our long-term liabilities and a timeline for achieving that goal.
and you're not talking about having a consultant, you're talking about us doing this internally, but to come back with some specific goals.
Well,
you know.
the consultant, you know, we might, and Myrna has also acquired some expertise in what I'm about to say, so I would go
Right.
with her judgment as to whether we need a consultant. But a question would be, for example, here we have a separate OPEB trust, which we're paying into. Should we establish a separate trust as part of doing this with the pension plan? That's a second issue, but I think the first issue is to establish a goal, and the goal should be, as Tina was saying, it should certainly be above whatever the minimum is, but I think more importantly, it should be close to 100%. That our goal is to, recognizing there's going to be fluctuations, and you know, we could never assure that we're always going to be at 100%, but that we have some trigger that says, hey, we're going to reach this target area, and then we're going to continue to pay as we go, except if the funding falls below a certain point, in which case we're going to make additional payments to make it up.
I like that. Myrna?
The reason why I mentioned, I appreciate all the comments made. The reason why I said that to look both at OPEB and pension liabilities is that I'm thinking of the budget and what it can absorb. And this has been a long time discussion since I've been here over 3 years now, of this committee wanting to address the pension liability. So I think we also need to have an actuarial report for there's an upcoming actuarial report. I haven't started on that yet, but we'll have that. And I'm thinking if the funds will, if you're going to have something similar for the pension where you can take, you know, a lump sum from your fund balance to start a trust for the pension, and then want to also fund on an annual basis from your operating revenue, what can the library afford to do combined? Will it keep the 750 for OPEB, or will it be a different number for OPEB so that you can also accommodate a pension trust? So I just feel that I don't have I'm open to the conversation of funding both through our annual revenue, but how much can their annual revenue accommodate is the question. And so that why, if you look at them combined, and you're like, I think you would feel better about the decision made in total.
So how would you like to bring this back to the committee?
Well, you know, it's still early enough to continue the policy that's in place now for OPEB. We'll work on getting the actuarial report for the pension side, and then come back and look at it as a whole in terms of how the library would like, this committee would like to proceed in funding. The committee wanted to wait until Measure W was passed to have some real discussions and make decisions and recommendations to the bigger commission. So I think we're timely with that.
That sounds good to me. Is everyone on board, Tina?
Yeah. I wonder if that 90% sounds a good number, but there's plenty of other municipal libraries. Is 90%, if we're gonna have a goal, we can make goals and I think use the like employees, but also realistic. Would it be interesting to know how?
Are you using a microphone?
Oh, I'm just not hitting the right button, sorry. What I was saying is, I think it's good to have a goal of 90% funding if we just have that number, but I'd like to know that that number is a good number, a good percentage, and I don't know that info. And I'm wondering do we need a little information before we make policies about a goal, making sure it's the right goal, or is it, I don't have that info, but there must be, what are other libraries doing with their percentage?
Well,
Or are they on the
I
pay
don't-
as they go?
I think the better gauge is internally, what the library resources are. And there are a lot of variables that I think would play into your decision making in terms of, what priorities there are for the library and where you want to invest your funds. If you tie up all your revenue in one place, then you'd have less for something else. So those are, there's also discussions about using, operating revenue to replenish the fund balance, to keep the fund balance also at a certain level. So I think those are that is I think what needs to be discussed. Also, just even it really is a finance exercise to look at this in terms of 90% sounds good, but for the library itself, is it 90? Is it 85? Is it 95? Is that where is that where the commission wants to invest its funds? Those are the conversations to have, given also when you have these trusts, they're there to also draw down on those funds. And there's a lot of strategy involved in that also as to the amount of earnings that you're making in these funds, and then how can you strategically utilize it to then pay off, your liabilities and help you with your budget, your annual budget.
Yeah, we had quite a long discussion with the last time we looked at the pension thing about this and talked about how creating a trust, and you can borrow the money back out and pay as you go, even with the money you put in the trust, so you can use it. So it's complicated, and that's why we just couldn't kind of come to a conclusion. And again, we didn't have our stable funding, which we do now. But I would also comment that, most libraries aren't like ours. We do have this very unique structure of the joint powers agreement. We're an independent public agency. We are solely responsible for both these big liabilities. And that's why, I think we have this concern, because we can't count on anybody else. This is our responsibility based on the funding that we have. So we've come a long way, and I think that's good discussion, and we'll keep going with it. So with that, final comments, or we will bring back another topic next month about the unassigned fund balance planning, and it may be OPEB part 2, depending on our discussions after this. I wanted to know if any of you have items for the future committee meeting, and I wanted to introduce just a thought. I don't know if it's the place for the finance committee meeting, but Mayor and I had a conversation this week. In the paper, I read about Mayor Mark Stapp of Santa Rosa. They have a meeting where they figure out what are their priorities for the city. And I know this is typical of most jurisdictions, most city councils, whatever, like what are our priorities? And we've kind of gotten to the place where we just express our priorities through strategic plan. And a strategic plan, last time it wasn't even a full strategic plan because it was a kind of a reimagining of where we're going. And I know you have talked about redoing the strategic plan, but where does this conversation of the commissioners and the responsibility of the commissioners to set priorities come in the same way that council members or supervisors weigh in on the priorities? And so Myrna said, you know, if we were to do that, we'd have to go way back, like starting in September maybe of the year before to really kind of weigh in on this. And I haven't had a chance to talk with you, you know, Deborah, about it. But I didn't know whether to put that, you know, talk about putting on the agenda next time or how you wanted to approach this kind of thinking. Would you want to update us about strategic plan, Erica?
Sure. So I will be putting in my budget request for next year some funds for a new strategic plan. Partly because the reimagining plan was completed in 2019, but it didn't really go into effect until 2021 because of the pandemic, but we are now in 2025. So it really makes sense to do another strategic plan. And the other thing that we saw the reimagining plan is that it was very aspirational, but it didn't have specific outcomes or outputs. And so we probably will return to a more traditional strategic plan. And certainly we'll also be working with the foundation because they're also working on theirs. So it would be nice to have both of ours done at the same time so that we can kind of reinforce each other's plans. And I definitely think we had talked about, maybe a retreat or something like that. And that could be when we would do that kind of discussion. It may not be related to the strategic plan, though. It could be. It just depends on, the timing. My plan was to start the RFP this spring and then submit it, release it sometime near July so that we could start getting those proposals. The foundation would like us to have our strategic plan wrapped up by next spring 2026. I'm not sure I'm not sure if that's reasonable but that's their goal because they want to have this big annual event and they would like us to announce our big shiny new thing post Roseland. And that's kind of what they would like, so.
Well, that's a good idea. It sounds like it's a good idea to mesh those two. Because we never have really considered the foundation as as much as a strategic partner as going forward. And I do support, we've had retreats in the past, and I think this would be a great idea and a way to, I just like the idea of the commissioners as our responsibility to put forward priorities and visions and, what we think are important as well. Because this last period of time is very, staff driven and we're kind of going along with it, which is fine, but you've got it under control, it sounds like, and you've got a plan. And so we would be, whoever gets the RF or that gets the bid would be, when would they kind of start putting things together for us, do you think?
I don't know. I'd have to, I haven't, I'm just in the very nascent stages of planning
Okay.
for this. But, Dara, when she worked for LSSI, this was one of the things that she did. And not just for her library, but she, LSSI, they would farm her out to other libraries. So she's very well
Oh, great.
versed in all of this. So
Super.
she would have more, a better understanding of what a realistic time frame is.
So upcoming and hopefully as soon as possible. Yeah. Great. Thank you. And Deborah?
Yeah, we've been waiting for the last commissioner, but certainly we're going to have a board retreat, and that is, of course, some of the things that we're going to talk about. What we've got new mission vision, so we should be thinking about that and moving forward with that. So it just takes a little time, and now that we know that we're going to be well funded for a little while, it's a perfect opportunity.
Super. Thank you. And no news on Sonoma.
I'm sorry?
No news on Sonoma.
They're going to put the ad in, but if you know people in Sonoma Valley, by all means, twist their arms.
Okay. So any other ideas for agenda items or comments? Anything? Okay, great. Well, we will adjourn to our next meeting, which is February 18th, again on a Tuesday because of the holiday next month also. So it will be Tuesday, February 18th at 3 o'clock, right here. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye, Andy. Stay warm.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks a lot.